Good morning. It amazes me that I've got people that actually wait 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I'm sure you put it on and go walk away and do things, but I take a look at it, it just surprises me. So good morning and welcome to Coffee Time, August 18th. Got a bunch of topics today, and then we'll get to your questions and answers, and we'll go as long as those questions pop up. Half hour to an hour should be wrapped up. First, you might hear a little scratch in the throat. Good morning, Eric. I felt like crap this week. I can't say I was actually sick, although for the last couple days I had a bit of a fever. I didn't know what it was because I didn't have symptoms like flu or. Good, glad you can hear me. I didn't have flu symptoms or anything that I'm familiar with. Just very weak, very tired, no energy, and running hot, like hot flashes, not so much a fever except for the last 2 days. I know you didn't tune in to hear about my medical woes, but I'm actually trying to get to a point. You know how hard it is for me to get to those points. I have to take a medicine. I've had to take it ever since I finished with the cancer. And they just tell me to keep taking it because it's supposed to drop a possibility of 70% down to like 15% of getting a different type of cancer. So I take them. It's one a day. Now, when I was in Ecuador, I took them and they cost me $54 for a month supply. In the US, they were free. I got them through the VA. But they would ship them to me, but they were always lost in the mail and I'd have to go buy them anyway. So I just gave up on that. So I took them there, it was $54. Here, they cost me about $20 for the same medicine. And there's one that I take, I buy it through the Olympica grocery store and I take it on a regular basis. I've taken it for months now. Well, they were out of that brand. So I decided to try another brand, a generic brand. I don't know where it comes from. Usually medicine here is either from the US or from Colombia itself. Colombia makes a lot of medicines. This was different. I should have looked for the video, but I didn't realize it for several weeks, but it was within 2 days of beginning that medicine is when I really started feeling no energy and these hot flashes. I stopped taking the medicine yesterday. I already feel better. So I won't be taking that medicine again. It may be a coincidence, but it's something to think about if you're buying medication here. It may not all be the same. In the US, generic must be generic. And I have a lot of faith in the Colombian medicine because I've had to get a lot of different things for different purposes, and it's all been good. Plus, you can usually get US medicine. For what I take, that's not rarely available. So I'll let you know if that seems to be the issue, but I guess this week I have to go out and try to track down the one that I'm used to taking that works fine. Oh, one more thing about that. When I was in Ecuador, I did take a generic version one time and had the same symptoms, and I completely forgot about it. So generic isn't necessarily generic, but I'll update you on that. I think it's an important thing to know. Sorry, it took me 5 minutes to tell you that. Okay, the last video I did was a bit of controversy about it. I got some messages. It was boring. That was a video where there was supposed to be a video about Sirkazhi in that slot. And I ended up not being able to go. And because it was planned on Tuesday and Wednesday morning, the video was due. There just wasn't enough time to do anything else. So I explained what happened, because regular viewers are always asking me anyway. So rather than, not put anything up or put up something that was really bad, I just figured I would just tell the story. This is what happened. Because as the intro of my videos now show, what I've always said, my formats kind of change up. I'll do interviews, I'll do talking head videos where I just talk about a particular topic, almost like coffee time, except here we do a range of things generally. And I'll do location videos where I'll go and say, look, here's the scenery, here's what's going on. So they're not the same. And so I thought that was perfectly suitable video, but I got a number of comments about how boring it was. I will take heed to that. But you have to understand, I'm just a boring person. And to me, almost all of my videos are pretty boring. And I try to give you information. Maybe that was a problem. Maybe I just wasn't giving you enough good information. I was just telling the story of what happened to me on Tuesday. Okay. I was asked why I left Cuenca. And last week I was asked a question that I missed, that was if I could live as cheaply and as well in all areas, would I move back to the USA or would I stay in Colombia? That was a really good question, I think. To the why I left Cuenca, I will leave you to the videos that I've done on this. I've done a number of videos. You can start on the one about altitude. If you go back almost a year, there's a video on altitude and why I left, because that was the final determining factor. But there was a number of factors that was playing into it. When you make a decision, it isn't usually just one thing, although it can be. It usually isn't. You get your pluses and minuses. And in Cuenca, the negatives were kind of building as time goes on, as I learned more, the negatives were building. But I still had a very nice life there. But then when I got to the altitude problem, where if you stay here, you're going to die, and there was already proof of that, pneumonia 3 times in less than a year, I would have died there. Then you've got to go. But it really goes into this long story, which I'll spare you from here, about why didn't I go to Colombia, since Colombia was where I always wanted to return to. Why did I go to Ecuador, and the mistakes I made in my own choices about going there, and then gravitating back here, for several years before I returned to Colombia, I was making trips back to Colombia. So, but the question I thought it was an interesting question, is if you could live as cheaply and as well in all areas. Thank you very much for the donation. Would I move back to the USA or Colombia? Okay, I love the USA. And in truth, there's parts of it at parts of the year that's my favorite place on the planet. Upstate New York is the most beautiful place on this planet. And I've been all over Asia and all over Europe and all over South America, a lot of places I haven't been. But I'm not dealing from National Geographic, I'm dealing with personal experiences. Now, there are unique and beautiful things everywhere, and I'm stunned every time I go out here in Colombia. But for 6 months of the year in upstate New York, every day is breathtaking. It's alive. There's constant events, like in the spring when the flowers come out, the magnolias and the lilacs. And through the air, everywhere, you get this fragrant lilac smell. You get these warming breezes after long miserable winter, and you get this fragrant smell. Riding bike through that, and getting those fragrances. It's amazing. Through the summer, there's very special things about it. When you get to the fall with the changes of the leaves, it's just an amazing place. It's the best place on this planet, with possible exception of Disney World, my favorite vacation spot. However, it's hit and miss. And 6 months of the year, it's hell on earth. It's terrible. It's miserable. And at some point, you have to decide whether you want to have this, but put up with this. Here in Colombia, things that I really like, that the premise wouldn't really change, is there's no winter. I never really minded winter that much for most of my life, but it gets old, it gets expensive, the snow tires and the snow removal and oh my God, the heat bills, and it just gets really expensive. You feel like you're working, half of your money goes to the government and the other half goes to winter. There's no winter here. Mosquitoes. The only thing about upstate New York I never liked, and most places from North Carolina on up, or even out west, is the mosquitoes. They can drive you crazy, and they can keep you from wanting to go outside. So you end up living a lot of your life inside, and that's not good. Here in Armenia, I get a few mosquitoes in the evening, and that's it. In Cuenca, I think in the 3 years I lived there, I might have seen 2 or 3 mosquitoes in total. They can't live at that altitude. So I don't even know how I got those live ones. I think they're blown up by the wind, coming up from the ocean, from the low grounds. But I've got a thing about mosquitoes. It's a quality of life thing. And here it's not entirely free, but it really doesn't bother me. If I'm sleeping at night and I leave my windows and patio door open, which I do all the time, rain or shine, it's always open, day and night. I love the breeze. A couple times a week, I'll hear and slap myself side the head. So I know that there's mosquitoes, and every once in a while I'll even find a mosquito bite, but it's almost non-existent. I can tolerate that. I love the steady sunrise and sunset. 6:30 comes up, 6:30 it goes down. I actually like that. I enjoy that. So that's become, I never would have thought this. I mean, when you go somewhere, you learn as you go, and it took quite a while for it to dawn on me, but I really like that. I like that I've got an internal clock, as many of us do, and if you ask me what time it is, I'm usually within 10 or 15 minutes. I think that sunrise and sunset helps keep that in me, even though I'm not getting up to go to work and need that internal clock anymore. So it's kind of comforting to me. And the United States, in my opinion, the couple years before I left, it seemed it was beginning to have this streak of a cold heart. And I thought a lot about this, about how to put this into words so you can understand. And I really can't think of anything concise to say about it, except that while there's still friendly people everywhere, and the US has very friendly people and very helpful people, it seems that there's a streak of a cold heart that is growing. I can feel it. I felt it when I was there, and it really bothered me. And as you know from watching this, one of the things I love about being in Armenia in particular is how kind-hearted people are. And I feel like I've returned to the time when I was around that all the time in the United States. So me coming to South America, was never about cost of living. This year it became cost of living, and thank God I was here, because something, without going deep into it again, life happens, and it hit me, and it hit me hard. And financially, I was in rough shape, and I'm coming out of it now. But I never expected that, and I never thought that was going to happen when I moved to Ecuador. And at the time, I had an income of about $4,000 a month, which is twice what you need in Ecuador. There's that dog. Only during the day and only around this time of day. And fortunately, not very often. But so, the moving here wasn't a financial decision. It was a find peace and alone time. And again, I've done videos on this, so I won't go into it. So if you look at the purpose, now since I've been here, it's given me all that and more. I could go back to the US, particularly in upstate New York, and I've lived in a lot of states, and I've traveled to almost every state in the Union. So I'm familiar with different places, so I get that. But upstate New York happens to be really one of my favorite places. And if I went back there, I could find a lot of the same, but not quite the same. So bottom line is, if I could choose right now, and money was absolutely no object, would I move back to the USA? And I can honestly tell you the answer is no. I'm just too content here. I have this overall feeling of well-being, that even if I don't feel good, even if the day goes wrong, that there's that in the background that I really enjoy. I have friends here, but to be honest with it, I'm not a good friend. I don't see them very often. I just reach out now and then. They, contact me quite a bit, and I'm usually just not in the mood. It's just an occasional. It doesn't mean that I don't want to have friends. I definitely want to have friends. I appreciate friends I have, but I may not be the best friend. That's just how I am. But there's this contentment that despite all of those, I don't feel good, or friends or whatever, that runs in the background, that I really enjoy about being here. Next year, who knows? I mean, you don't know. You don't know how things are going to work out. But as much as I've lived in so many places, there's a contentment that I feel that isn't typical or common for me. So I just love it here. So the answer is I would choose Colombia, at least right now. Okay, this comes up quite a bit, so I'll address it somewhat. I'm not one to, really want to slam people or say a lot of negative things, and so I'm not going to. But there's other vloggers, and are they competition? No, they are not competition. Thank you, I appreciate the donation. But I'll tell you a couple that I actually appreciate. I don't watch any anymore on a regular basis, but the ones I appreciate. Indigo Traveler. If you haven't seen him, I recommend him. He's constantly traveling around the world. He has an interesting take on things, and I love the video series that he did on Venezuela. And if that doesn't put to shame and put to rest these people that are saying, oh, it's all propaganda and Venezuela isn't that bad and people aren't really suffering the way they say, watch his series on that. And you'll figure out after one or two of his series why some people have that opinion, but it's really not valid. If you're in a particular part of Caracas, that's the way it feels. The grocery stores are full. That's what you get to see. But when you travel outside and go out to the country, go to other cities, you find a whole different world. It's a good series. I appreciate the guy. There's something about it that I don't ever really want to, usually don't want to watch the whole thing. Probably a lot of people about that with mine, but I like his video. I like the professionalism he uses, and I appreciate that he looks for real information. Now in Cuenca, you guys have to quit asking me about this because I don't have much to say. There's a couple that moved there recently, and originally something about vegetarian maybe, and now it's just their name. I think they're very nice people, and I think they do a nice job on their videos. I like the quality of their videos. And being one who's bad at it, I look at pretty much everybody else, with exception of Hobo Traveler. I look at everybody else and wish that I was as good as they were. The only thing I'll say about them that even comes close to negative is they probably should have waited a while to do their videos. They're new there, and they're putting out some information that I know they're going to find out is not correct. There is a weird thing about Cuenca, Ecuador, that what seems to be at first 6 months to a year later, you find out isn't necessarily that way. It takes some time or someone to point it out to you. And I've done videos on that too, so I'm not going to go into that. But sometimes vloggers in general, they go to a place and they drop in for a few days and then they go somewhere else and they put out information. And if you watch it, that could not, it's very possible it's not reality at all, because maybe whatever they experienced in those 2 days would never happen again, be it good or bad. It doesn't really tell you what things are really like. Now, if you're vacationing and every bit of information is important, that's fine. But take it for what it is. If you're planning to move to a place, those kind of vlogs are really kind of useless and kind of can point you down the wrong path. I'm talking vloggers in general that just drop into a place. I mentioned Hobo Traveler. There's probably not a one of us that don't watch Hobo Traveler. And I like his videos generally. I don't watch them that often. They're kind of all over the place. He kind of cracks me up. I appreciate how he goes at things in life. It's not me. I'm not out to, live my life on $200 a month. I admire him, but that shaky camera makes mine look steady. I get seasick on a lot of his videos when he's walking around. I wish he would do something about that. I would watch him more. But he's been at this for many, many, many years. I think it's a good source. I particularly like when he interviews, which he doesn't do very often. But I remember he did one maybe 4 years ago of a gentleman in Vilcabamba, Ecuador. I really liked that video. I found it to be useful and prove out to be mostly true once I found out about the place. Ask me that question if I forget about renting or buying as we get to wrap up, and I need to move on it. There's a video here in Colombia called Life Afar. I am not a fan at all because it portrays itself to be informational. It's done very well, but they're just real estate people. And what it really is a glossy infomercial. And I find a lot of information in it to be good, but a lot of it to be misleading because they're not going to put anything up that could, hamper their business. That video is about their business. So take it for what it's worth. It kind of reminds me of international lying or international living. It's a sales pitch. It's all to sell you seminars and other products. And Therefore, you're only ever going to get this flowery information, anything to get you interested so that you'll pay them for more. I'm not a fan of those videos. Last one I'll mention is a newcomer. It's Sly's Life. Sly, as in Sly and the Family Stone. Sly's Life. And I like a lot of his videos. I probably watch those more than these other ones I've named, although not consistently. And my favorite one was when he actually walked through a dealership in Colombia. It was funny. He broke through some of the barriers that I run into with the camera by basically getting them all on board. And he did it with good humor, laughter, kind of sucking them in. He kind of a bit overwhelmed them with his personality. And so I appreciated that about that video, because I know, of course, what it's like trying to get video of certain things. Now, he runs into it also in a lot of places. I mean, I see it. I empathize with what he goes through, but he's good at it, and he hasn't been doing it very long, but he's very successful, and I would recommend watching those. Although he does tend to lean more for the younger person looking for a girlfriend, and that's, you know, that could be helpful, but you know, finding a place to live and that wouldn't hurt to spend more time on that, I guess. But you know, he's about getting views, and that's going to get you views. Last thing I'm going to mention on this, it's not actually a video, but for information, I think the best site that I've seen for information in Ecuador or in Colombia is one for Medellin on Facebook, or it's just a website, and it's MedellinGuru.com. I've talked to the guy who does that. I actually pointed out something that was like an egregious error. It was true maybe 3 years ago, but it's not true anymore. And he responded very quickly. He corrected it. He does his homework. He does his research. And so when I see his stuff, there'll be errors from time to time, as I'll do, as anybody will. But the information on his website on the whole is actually really good, thought out, researched information. So I admire him for that. I respect that. I was asked about, well, Facebook pages. If you go on any of the Facebook groups, you'll see by new people the same questions asked over and over and over and over. And it amazes me how many people aren't aware of this, but just so that you know, on the left side of Facebook, there's a list of things. I think the last one is recommendations. There's a search bar. You can put in, search that group, rentals, or whatever it is, and you'll bring up everything that's been posted about whatever that topic is. It'll save a lot of trouble, a lot of time. It'll get you some pretty good information, and maybe you can narrow a question. But if you're in a group year after year after year and you constantly see the same questions, it makes you not want to answer them. So you could probably serve yourself a little bit better if you use that search bar first. Just a thought. Last thing before I get to your questions, if I can cover this quickly, this is also something I'm asked all the time, the Stratus system that I talk about once in a while. It goes from 1, which is the low, bajo class, Stratus 2, which is the low class, bajo class, 4. 3 is the low middle, medio bajo. 3. 4 is middle class, medio. 5 is middle high, which is where I live, medio alto. And then the high class, 6, alto. It serves a number of purposes. In Colombia, about 3 to 4% of all the housing is Stratus 6. about 80% of the housing in Colombia is 3 or below. That may or may not be useful information, but you'll see what I found interesting with that is that leaves better than 15% that's middle or upper middle class, which is pretty strong in a country that used to have almost nothing. But that's the housing. Now, many people in middle class will live in stratus 3. So you can't go by those stats strictly to determine who's upper class or whatever, but that's housing. And most people will tend to, where they can live, they'll try to live one tier down. It affects your utility rates, for example. The people in 1 and 2, which are very, very poor, are supported by everybody in 4, 5, and 6. The higher your stratus, the more you pay to subsidize the people at the low end. If you don't want to subsidize people at the low end, don't live in 6, live in 3. Stratus 3 is neutral. You just pay your normal bill. There's no subsidies involved. And you can live in nice places in 3. Personally, I wouldn't, from what I see, at least in Armenia, I could comfortably live in 4, 5. That's a sweet spot for me. I don't need to live in 6. I don't really find apartments I'm interested in to be in stratus 6. 4 and 5 are really nice places. So you could go to 4 and have a minimum of a subsidy and live in a very nice neighborhood. Also, 3 is in some neighborhoods, there's 3 that are nice. 1 and 2 would never recommend living in those places. It's anywhere on this planet, if you put yourself in the middle of real poverty, you're subjecting yourself to the potential of problems. Okay, give me a minute. I'm going to scan down through, answer any questions. What are skeeters? Ha ha ha. Is it difficult to find furnished apartments for rent? Yes, but don't worry about it. I mean, if you're talking about here in Armenia, you can furnish a place for a few $100s. Seriously. Go use, there's a strong used market here. It's what I did. I filled the place. I've got a refrigerator, a washing machine, coffee table, end table, 2 stuffed chairs like this one, a couch, a bed with mattress, some stools for the counter, completely furnished. These, I mentioned refrigerator, washer, and in total was under $500. Seriously. So don't get hung up on the furnish thing. Also, when you run into furnish, unless it's really high-end places that you're going to be spending a ton of money on, the furniture is probably going to suck. So it's nice that there's furniture there, but you're not going to feel that comfortable. And you're responsible for it. So if you get this rickety little furniture that breaks on you because it's just such crap, it's your responsibility to fix it or replace it. Okay, I might be exaggerating a little bit, but I've seen some furnished, and with the exception of a couple places that were penthouse quality, I didn't care for the furniture. It was just, I looked for something comfortable. I want to actually live there. And I'm not one to just live in bed, so furniture is important to me. I actually sit in chairs. So I wouldn't get hung up on the furnished aspect. And it's not a thing anyway. Your choices are going to be much greater if you look for unfurnished. And your prices are going to be way better. You're paying a premium for that furniture. Premium. Can you have a premium plus? Yeah, that's what you're paying. All right, what else we got here? Sly is honest. I respect him. Absolutely, I agree. He's moving to Cali. Yep. I appreciate you guys having good conversations the last few videos here. It's good to see. I hope you connect up with each other. Bear with me. Okay, just to, he says the life afar Airbnbs are legit, decent prices. I wasn't speaking to that. I'm not saying the guy's unscrupulous at all. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that he does videos that are really just infomercials to support his business. Nothing wrong with that. If I had the business he's doing, I would do the same thing. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. What I'm saying is it's not a good place to get information because it's going to be information about, you know, the city, for example, or an area or something. It's going to be on the flowery side. It's like international living. So people that will gravitate to that and think that's the case, don't rely on that because it's not day to day dealing with whatever problems you deal with, which if you're going to move somewhere, you really need to know. You need heads up on those things. Some might be deal breakers for you. So I have no qualms about their business. I'm not speaking to whether they're good business or not. Truth is, I don't know. I know he's made a big business out of it, and you usually don't do that if you're not reputable. But as far as vlogs go for information, which is what I was talking about, I don't think it's the best source to have. But I appreciate the production of what he does. Very, very glossy, very nice, well done. Okay, thank you. Appreciate the donation. Um, Besides mosquitoes, does altitude generally discourage other bugs? Absolutely. It depends on the altitude. Now, I'm at an altitude where bugs aren't really affected by the altitude here. And it's not a lack of mosquitoes because of that. It's because of that ocean breeze that's just constantly going through here that kind of keeps bug population down. You go out, walk around, it's not likely that you're going to, oh, there's a bug, there's a bug. You don't get that. You may see an occasional one. You go to Manizales and the altitude is over 7,000 feet. That's greatly going to limit bugs as far as they just can't live there. And Cuenca was the same. And yes, it affects other bugs. Most bugs can't live that high. Now, spiders can. You're still going to run into some spiders, but I don't see them here. But you know, they exist everywhere, and it will affect it. But flies, flies are going to go everywhere. Cockroaches are going to go everywhere. None of those things I see much of. Actually, most places in Ecuador that I went to, I didn't see much of it, with the exception of Salinas. Part of the day, it was a lot of flies. But and here in Colombia, in the Andes, not a lot of pest issues. I don't have, for medications bought in Ecuador or Colombia, is with or without health insurance. I have health insurance through the VA that will reimburse me. But I don't use health insurance to go buy the medicine. You know, it's not that much that I have to put out. It's half that much here in Colombia, so I appreciate that. But you just walk up. You don't even need a prescription. You just walk up with a few exceptions. My medicine is a controlled substance in the U.S. You've got to have a prescription for it. But here, you just walk up and get it. Where was my last video shot? That was all footage that was on the one where I didn't go to Sirkazhi, and somebody said something about it being Sirkazhi. Well, it can't be because I didn't go there. And that's what I was talking about. But that was all footage in Finlandia. I thought about just sitting there and talking like this, but I had all this footage, and Finlandia was a very pretty place. And I thought, why not put that up? And as I was scrolling through, I saw the twins, who really cracked me up because they not only look the same, but their facial features, when one would smile, the other would, without seeing each other. They had the same features. The one would go like that, and the other did it at the same time. It was fascinating. It's like they were connected. So I say, I'll use this footage. And so I just thought it might be more interesting to put that footage up than to just sit here and talk. Nobody mentioned my poster. That came with the apartment, this poster. Somebody just made it. And I thought I'd just throw it up in the background. Thought somebody would say something about it. Doesn't count now if you say something. Doesn't count. Okay, Bill. What is the poster behind your head? Okay, I spoke too soon. That was already there. Oh yeah, would I ever buy an apartment or house in Colombia? Can you hear those dogs? Dog barking really isn't an issue here, but occasionally you get it. Okay, would I buy? Yes, I would, except I won't. I would not buy in Ecuador because it's too problematic. Owning land isn't a sure thing. Somebody can come back on you 2 years later and claim the property. It's not the best of systems there. Plus, land there is overpriced because you have a lot of people trying to gouge you. And then to unload it is near impossible. So it's a difficult proposition there. I would never buy in Ecuador under any circumstances, particularly since rent is so cheap. Why bother? Here in Colombia, yes, I would, because I can go buy a nice townhouse and a nice apartment building, 2-bedroom, 2-bath for $30,000. I mentioned a figure the other day. I misspoke. $30,000 to $50,000 will get you a really nice ownership on an apartment in a building. You're not going to spend a whole lot more. You can buy country estates for under $100,000. Land is inexpensive here. Land, it has good legal history here, so that if you buy the land, you own the land. You don't have to worry about, people coming back on you, as long as you do it properly. They do things like surveys and all the things that you run into in the States they do here. So you've got your deed, and it has meaning. So I would feel safe and secure to do it here. And the price is such that it can make sense. Now, I would never buy, and I would always recommend people to wait a period of time, at least 6 months, probably a year. Because when you buy it, you own it. You don't know how long it's going to take to get out from under it if you change your mind. And it takes a while to really understand if there's issues about where that is, that you might be saying a month later, oh my God, I wish I'd never bought this place. Give yourself a little time. There's no rush. There's lots of properties here. And if there's a great deal today, there's going to be a better deal tomorrow. That's just the way the property market is here right now. It truly is a buyer's market. So relax, rent, take advantage of rentals. Again, I'm speaking to this area, the coffee area. Rents are very inexpensive. It's nice to have a landlord that'll take care of things for you. You don't have to worry about taxes or any of the issues that you may have to worry about if you own property. you don't really have to deal with it. Unless, of course, you make a contract that says you're going to be responsible for this, this, and this, which can happen. Contracts can be flexible unless you go through an agent, and then you're going to get screwed. But okay, maybe not always. It's personally, I just find it best to deal with the owner directly. I can make good deals that way. All right. Am I entertaining buying a car? Yes, I actually plan to buy a car. But if I were not doing these videos, I would not bother buying a car. Again, in Ecuador, no way, no how. The laws are draconian. It's very problematic to own a car, to drive a car. It's very expensive. A piece of crap is going to cost you $5,000 and up. Here, as I point out in videos, there's cars you can buy that are roadworthy for $1,000. It reminds me a lot of places in the U.S. Car prices are reasonable. Getting a license is reasonable. The rules of the road are very similar to the U.S. So I don't have built-in drawbacks, but I wouldn't have a car if it wasn't for the videos, because you really don't need one. Wherever you're going to go, there's a bus that'll take you. There's a good inside Colombia flight system. Like I can take a flight from right here to Miami or Fort Lauderdale. I can take a flight to Bogota. I can fly to Medellin. I'll take a bus. It's, a third of the money. And, that's important to me. Plus I get to see the scenery, and my travel entails doing videos. And if you're flying, you're not going to be doing a lot of video. So for my purposes, that's the way I would work it. So I plan to get a car one of these days if I can afford it. I was hoping for this fall, but with the camera situation, it'll probably be maybe next spring that I can get a car, and it will solely be for the purpose of going outside of Armenia to do videos. I can carry my equipment and just be easier that way. Inside Armenia, I have zero use for a car. So, and to go to Pineda, why bother? Unless I'm going to go to PriceSmart and I plan on buying a lot of bags of stuff. I'm shopping for the year or something. That car would be nice. But everything's doable without a car pretty much. And for the few times maybe you would want a car, you can always hire somebody. Okay. I didn't mention, it says that my comments on other vlogs, actually called vlogs with a V, video, are spot on. I was surprised that you didn't mention how to expat. Yeah, I didn't mention it because I didn't have much to say either way. I think some of their stuff is really good. Some of it is really well done. Again, I think everybody does videos better than me, with possible exception of Hobo Traveler. His sucks worse than mine, but he's been doing it for 20 years, so it's not all that bad. But most people are very good about how they do the video, and this is another one that puts together a really nice video. I just don't find myself drawn to it to really watch them that much. Nothing against them. We all are hit by, something draws us to it. And there's something about those videos where I've seen them and I've probably watched maybe 10 or 12, which isn't a lot, because I'm just not drawn to them. That's just me. If you are, by all means, I think they're really well done. Am I going to do the Saturday night dating special? Yes, I am. I was going to talk about it today, and I decided not to, but you asked the question. I kind of, first of all, I don't know how much of a draw, and I would like it almost to be a closed session. So I'm trying to figure out how I could possibly do that. Not because there's going to be anything untoward or whatever. It's just it's a kind of topic that would tend to draw people that want to make nasty comments. And I'm not in the mood for trolls. I don't need to be, policing the chat. I just don't want it to be like that. I want to be able to speak my mind and, say what I think without hecklers in the back row. So if you have ideas about that, let me know. I have decided I am going to do something, and it may just be on something like this, and we'll just cross our fingers. Maybe I'll get one or two of you to be moderators so you can keep an eye on it. And if you see a troll, you can delete them for me because I won't see them. The print's too small on the live chat. If I'm watching this on actual YouTube, the chat font is much larger. I don't know why that is. There's nothing for me to change it. So, but I do want to do it. It's not going to be anything. It's not going to be like, oh, how can you buy cheap grills? It's not going to be anything like that. But I will talk about my experiences, what was successful, what was not, simply in finding somebody to spend my days with or evenings or whatever. It's not going to be about sex. It's just going to be about finding somebody to spend your time with. So I will do that. I have actually a lot of good information about that because I'm a collector of information. And I want to share the information. I think it's good information. It's wholesome. There's nothing wrong with it. But some people have to be in kindergarten and he said, and I'm just not in the mood for that. But yes, I will do it, and it will be coming soon. And I think Saturday night is a good time to do it. Do I think police are honest, or is there corruption? Yes, there's corruption. Nothing like it once was, but there's corruption. When I did my video, My Life on the Run, when I was traveling around Colombia illegally and in fear of the law, and I got caught, the only way out of that was to pay them off. And rather than be booted out of Colombia for 5 years or pay thousands of dollars in fines, I paid them off. I mean, $100 to get rid of that problem, at least for that time. Of course, then there was a danger of the next stop and the next stop. It was a horrible time. It was the most fearful I can recall maybe ever being. I'm not one that lives in fear, but I learned what fear felt like. What it tasted like. I was fearful. So yes, there's corruption. I would say it's probably on the same level as if you've ever traveled to Georgia or Alabama. You might get pulled over. I've experienced this. I'm not hating on Georgia or Alabama. It's just that if I'm driving through New York, I get pulled over for speeding. If I even hint that I'm going to put some money with the license, there's a good chance I'm going to be in handcuffs. They don't mess around. No, they don't do that. But down, I found in some of the southern states, in North Carolina and Georgia, Alabama, maybe Florida, although I don't have a personal experience there of anything happening. It's not uncommon to, okay, we're going to take you off to the judge, and it's going to be very difficult. And well, is there any way I can pay the fine right now? And yeah, it's going to be $200, and okay, and they let you on. I mean, it's corruption, obviously. It's going in the guy's pocket. So it's probably more on that level. And in places like Armenia, I don't see it because I'm not driving, and I'm not in a situation where I have any run-in with cop. I mean, I live a life that basically gets me home before 7 o'clock most nights, and I see lots of police around. I can tell you what I'm told by people that live here in Armenia, and it's not a single thing. I've got a couple friends that do not like the police here. They think they're worthless. They think if you have a problem, they're just going to ignore it. They're going to go through the motions and never do anything. I have a couple other friends who think the police, it's really good that they're around. Just by the sheer fact that they're around, it keeps the crime down, and they appreciate the police. So without knowing somebody in the police that will be honest with me, I don't know what more to tell you than that, but it certainly is not a rampant issue where I'm living. Other people may have other experiences. If you do, feel free to put comments, the regular comments here, or send me an email. Maybe there's something to talk about there. Taxes, 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 taxes. If you want to know about taxes, talk to a local accountant. Now, having said that, you are right. There is a lot of conflicting and misinformation, particularly on the internet, about taxes here. I'll tell you what I was told by the people that did my visa and by several gringos that have lived here for a period of time, and also my family, my friends that are family here that I've known for many years. Although their information, they didn't know too much about gringos, they just told me about tax in general. The best that I'm aware of is that if you're here and you're living on retirement, you're not going to be taxed unless it's a crazy amount. Now, what is that crazy amount? What is the threshold? I don't know. And I don't know what circumstances it comes into. The tax law here is a complicated tax law, kind of like the US. And so in the US, you really have to go talk to somebody for your particular situation if you want the right info. And it's kind of like that here. If it were simpler, I would just say this is how it is. The reason there's conflicting information is because of this situation. It isn't a particular thing, but I was told by the people with a visa that I told you about, they told me that retirement income here is not treated as income like from a job. It's treated more as savings. Now, personally, I think one of the ways you can avoid this entirely is the way I have it set up, and it had nothing to do with taxes, it has to do with ease and security, is if you have whatever money you have paid into a US bank and you withdraw that from an ATM with a debit card, there is zero record of any money coming through. And the only place that there is any record of any kind of money is when you did the visa and you got the affidavit, the proof of money to get the visa. So if they say you've got to have $800 a month or whatever it was, you have proof of that. So they have that on record. And so that's the amount. And whatever that is I'm not taxed on it. So I have no tax issues. I'm not worried about it. I'm not going to pursue any. And any income that I have, even when you give me a donation like the ones here today, and thank you very much for that. It's what keeps this going. But even that money is going ultimately into the U.S. bank, and if I withdraw it for any reason, I'm going to do it with the ATM. If it's anything that I have to pay, subscriptions for software or something like that, then it's just going to go, to that company out of the U.S. bank. So none of it crosses the threshold of the border of Colombia, so it's kind of a non-issue. Now, if you work in Colombia, and I don't mean internet work, but if you're doing, like somebody asked me about opening a business in Colombia, that's fine, but you are now going to be responsible for taxes for at least filing, and any income you have can get thrown into that pot. So that's something to seriously consider. You might open a business that's not making money, but you have retirement money or other money that you're living on, and now all of a sudden you put it in a situation where it becomes taxable. Something to think about. But don't take my word, don't take anybody on the internet, don't listen to them on Facebook. Get yourself a local accountant, pay him $20, ask him your questions, show him your situation, just find out, what is my tax situation going to be? And if there are any, how can I legally avoid it? No, I haven't seen a single accident since I've been in Armenia. It's funny, I just brought this up last week with a friend here. I said, do you ever see accidents? Oh, there's accidents all the time. Well, when's the last time? She couldn't remember the last time. So she just said, and then what she went to was, well, the traffic just seems crazy. Well, when I drove in the traffic some months back, I really didn't have any problem with it. The only thing to be aware of is motor scooters who think that there's no lanes. And I will also say that Armenia traffic is much better than Bogota or Medellin. People here actually, they'll wave you in front of them. Go ahead, I'll wait for you. You're going to make a turn, no problem, go ahead. That's how they drive here. And that is not the case in Medellin. It's every man for himself. And Cali is like that. It's like, it's a amusement park ride just to take a taxi to the terminal. It's kind of crazy. Accidents not a big thing here. And my driving here, honestly, it doesn't factor into it. It would factor into, if I'm going to go to Medellin, I would probably park maybe in one of the barrios out of the heart of the city, out of Poblado, and then take the metro in, do it that way. I mean, why? I don't like driving in Manhattan either. I mean, so, why subject myself to the potential of that risk? So I wouldn't do that. But if you don't have a specific reason to have a vehicle, just don't. You don't need one. You really don't need one. I think we just have this mentality coming from North America. You have to have a vehicle there to live. This is a place where you do not have to have one at all. There is very little need. And again, the only need I would have is all these trips. It would just be so much simpler for those to have a car. But if it wasn't for making videos, if I was just touristing, I wouldn't have a car. Although you can make an argument for it. But I think that's it. I don't think I missed any. Get a moderator for the dating show. Yeah, I think a couple moderators is probably the way to go. So if I have any volunteers that want to watch the dating video, possibly next Saturday, the Saturday after at worst case. But let me know your interest. Send me a message or send me an email if you're interested. If I can get an interest of at least 30 people, maybe I can put it together for this coming Saturday. So that's it. I think I got through all the questions. The supporters of the channel, thank you. Thank you for watching. Thank you for any thumbs up. Oh, by the way, that boring video got the most thumbs down of any video I've had in a long time. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. I mean, I'm boring. I'm just a boring guy. So I'll see you on next coffee time.